Good. Almost said good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Captive Audiences. Don Anderson and Sonny Danforth. Say hi, Sonny. Or we
Hi.
won big.
We
Are
won
you tired?
bigly. And
Are you
I'm not
tired of
tired
winning
of
yet?
winning. Are you?
I am not tired of winning. It's like a dark cloud has been lifted over all of our heads. It feels so good. I can't believe it. I mean, I can believe it. I think we all kind of saw this coming. You were kind of holding your breath. But I always thought to myself, there's no way my fellow American, that most of us are that crazy. And given the way the media behaved, you began to almost think that we are that crazy. So it was really nice to see when we finally had an honest election what the people thought. The people have spoken. The great Oz has spoken. And they're having to respond to it. So, how about this? What was it? 312, I think this is official now. 312 electoral votes. That's officially a blowout. The Senate, I think, is 52 to 48. It might be 53 to 47, but huge movement in the Senate. House, that's been decided as well. So, we didn't get the House by a big margin, but the thing is, we got a majority in the House. We got the Supreme Court. This is like, I'm not sure if either party's been in this position in a really long time. And as I told Sunday at the top of this, we were discussing this before he came on board. Daddy's home. The kids have been running wild. The warden is back into prison, and it's time to get back to business. And I thought just run through just a few of the things that have happened without even the man. We're what, 6 weeks away from inauguration? He's not even in office. Just here's a list of just a few of the things that have already changed. So Wall Street, the market gained 1.62 trillion in value, one of the biggest 5-day leaps in history. Remember, the man's not even in office. Taliban immediately announced that they wanted to strengthen relations with the U.S. and get itself off the terrorist list. Qatar, which has always been a safe haven for terrorists, suddenly switched their positions on Thursday and started to tell those terrorists to get out. Hamas says it's ready to end war. On Monday, Trump said he'd soak Mexico with a 25% tariff on all goods unless they sealed up their borders. And the next day, the caravans have already started breaking up coming from Mexico. Putin's ready to begin negotiations. The European Union is ready to buy oil from the United States instead of Russia. The New York City mayor has ended the migrant debit credit card. They got to buy their own food now. The DEI consulting firms are starting to lose businesses. Corporations are not renewing their contracts. And so that cancer is starting to go away as well. I mean, this is just the beginning. I call it the end of the beginning, right? So it's not even the first quarter. We're still warming up. How cool is that? Your thoughts,
It's
Sonny?
cool. It's so cool. And I'll tell you, it's interesting looking at the people that he's putting into the positions he is. It's going to be, I believe that we are going to see some unprecedented things taking shape in our government. I saw on X. For anybody who's not on X, you ought to get on there. And in fact, Elon's mother posted on posted on X today. She says, "Oh my gosh, I'm losing sleep on X. I gotta, take a break because there's so much to see. It's moving so fast, and there's so much, and it's the truth of what you're seeing." And so he had said that, he and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to be with the Department of Government Efficiency. And I can't wait because it is going to be trimming down the regulations, trimming down, I believe, regulations and the different levels of the bureaucracy. So Trump had said, I think 99 departments would be pretty good. And we have over 400. So I went, wow, this is good. I mean, look what he did when he bought Twitter. He slashed and burned, and now it runs more efficient. It's running good. And he has
didn't miss them, by the way. Didn't miss any of them. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. So it's exciting watching this. but we're going to see things like I believe that we've never seen before, and now's the time to do it, to go back to less government. And I'll tell you, I wish David Darnell was here today, but he's watching
Oh,
from up above down on us, because he was always less government.
yeah.
We've got too much. And here it
Fist
comes,
pumping.
David.
He's fist pumping, David.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are so many things, there's so many ideas that are so sensational. So here's one that I heard. I just love this idea. So I think it was this is directly from Trump. He wants to move the alphabet organizations out of Washington D.C. and relocate them to the center of the country. So think about states like Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Texas, Utah, right? Because where they are now is they're all in Washington D.C. And we all know the District of Columbia is what, 99% Democrat. It is not reflective of the rest of the country at all. So they hire these people to come in there and be bureaucrats, and they're all left wingers. So even when there's a change in administration, it's very difficult to get rid of these people. How likely are they to follow, to execute on the orders that they're given? And those aren't elected individuals. Wouldn't it be awesome if those people were hired from the general population, as we know it? And so I just think that is so brilliant. So DEA, FBI, you name the outfit, Homeland Security. If they're coming from the general population, you're not likely to see things like FEMA going to a rescue mission and then telling people to not rescue people with Trump signs in the front yard. I mean,
Yeah.
how immoral is that? But that's the
Yeah.
caliber of person who works in these organizations. If they came from the general population, that would not be happening.
I think you're right. In fact, Trump specifically talked about, there's two space, one is Space Force and the other one is Space something else. And it is based in Colorado, because he put it originally in Louisiana. I
Mhm.
believe it was in Louisiana. And Biden says, no, we're moving it to Colorado. And
Mhm.
Trump says, oh, no, we're not. It's going back to Louisiana, and we're breaking ground. It's right now. That's where it's going to be. It's not going to be in Colorado. And so there is some definite power plays there on where agencies are and whatnot. But yeah, you got to take things all out of DC.
Yeah, and I think you have to hit them with everything you got. I forget that term that they used when we invaded Iran or Iraq back in the early 2000s, but you got to hit them with everything at once. It's got to be an impossible force. What? And the thing is, we've got basically a 2-year period, because then you get into the whole lame duck status. 2 years out before that next election. So now's the time to do it and just get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking at Lori says Gates for Attorney General. Wow, wow, wow. He's already resigned. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I just read that before coming on, that he's resigned in
Mm-hmm.
preparation for that. And then also that Doji, the Department of Government Efficiency with Elon and Vivek, has an X page. I followed it tonight before we came on. I was
Mm-hmm.
looking at my X and I go, oh, hey, cool. You've got your own page. I'm on it. And they're saying, hey, anybody with any expertise, there's like an ad, an application there. They're going, anybody with any expertise and wants limited government, let us know right here. Apply.
That is awesome.
It is. It
Right.
is. And, on X, you can find it all there, quite
Mhm.
frankly. You can find it all. And having the community be able to comment and push back, it's like, it's such a breath of fresh air. I'll tell you, it's great. Now, Lori says she's banking on election exposure yet. And actually, there is some, I agree with that 100%. And I think that's something that, in fact, well, Trump has said he's going
Mhm.
to um, make changes with that.
Mhm.
And that is I would like to segue a little into election stuff. I've
Mhm.
got an article here. Portland was the first time that Portland had ranked choice voting.
Mhm.
It killed their turnout by 20% in Portland.
Mhm.
And so, they didn't know, they skipped the ranked choice voting section of the Portland City Commissioners. They did other parts of their ballot and they just go, oh no, oh no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And so the lie of, oh, it's going to help people vote,
Mhm.
baloney. It's a lie. And I think it's designed exactly to do that, to disenfranchise voters. And then I'm going to post that article that I was just mentioning. And then I had another one that the RNC files a lawsuit to stop Pennsylvania, a Senate race, from counting illegal ballots. So
Mhm.
the fight is still on. There's going to be, and this is from Just the News, and there the fight's on. They're still going to be looking into some of these close races. And don't forget, Trump said, if you cheat, we will find you.
Right. And that's, yeah.
So,
And that's huge. I mean, nothing that they've, well, it's hard to say that. I was going to say nothing that they've done has undermined the Constitution more than their destructive attack on the electoral system. And they've done a lot, that's for sure. But
yeah,
if you undermine that, we don't have a republic. So we've got to stop the cheating. I saw a map. It was a map of the United States, and it had the states that allowed or didn't enforce like a voter ID relative
yeah,
to the other states. Did you see that map? It's
I
like
did.
every
Yeah,
one of those states that didn't have voter ID laws were blue, which tells
that's
you
right.
everything you need to know. That's the whole reason they're behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, there needs to be something done, and it's the federal government calling for, a national holiday for voting, and it can all be in person with ID on paper, on paper.
Yeah, like
And
like
if
the
you
old.
do that for the federal elections, the states are going to follow because the feds, they can say what the federal election is going to be.
Yeah, and it's good for a community. I mean, one of the defining characteristics of a society in decline is where people don't interact with each other. And you think about just your basic civics, and most of us listening to this, I think, are old enough to remember this. When mom and dad went down to the local school, and they pulled behind the curtain, and
Yeah,
I remember getting walking down there to the school with them. Wait right here, right here, Johnny, right? And
right.
all your older folks went and cast their vote. And then when they were doing that, they came out and huddled about and talked to their friends and associates and neighbors, and that's what makes this country so great. I mean, it's a huge country made up of zillions of little neighborhoods where people get along and talk to each other, even if they disagree. And we need to go. And it's much harder to gaslight an entire country when you have that kind of interaction going on. So,
Yeah.
just from a socioculture perspective, it makes so much better sense to do it that way.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So, what about some of those appointments? There are so many. I mean, and I think one, I can't, I was going to say, I think one of the best is, the Department of Government Efficiency with Musk and Ramaswamy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can't, I'm looking forward to seeing what that is going to turn into.
Well, you know what's so cool about this? This is the first time, I think, in the country's history that we've had such a large number of non-politicians, non-government employees running things. I don't know if this has ever happened. I can't remember the numbers, but some huge percentage of presidents have been like lawyers, and it's probably in the order of 85 or 90% or something, right? And then the rest have been general officers, but almost none have come straight from the private sector. So you get a private sector look at how a government ought to behave. Some of the things that I've heard Vivek talk about, for example, have been like putting incentives in place. You get when you do well, you get rewarded, and when you don't do
Yes.
well, you get punished. Just like in the private sector, if each, I think one of them was each week you have to write a report on what you accomplished that week and submit that. I mean, this is like private sector behavior, and if your department can't show that it's accomplishing anything,
Mhm.
then your department goes away, just like in the private sector. And it reminds me very much of when I first started out in life in college. I worked for for a governmental organization, and I won't get into the details of which one. But I was amazed that there was uh, no way to measure success or failure, and they didn't even bother measuring it. It was a program to help out disadvantaged kids, by the way, and one of the things, one of the outcomes was supposed to be to put these kids in a position to get to go to college. Right. This is the days when going to college was good, by the way. So let's go. I would think that'd be a good goal now. But back then, that was, I think, a legitimate goal. And they never even measured it. So if you have no idea how well you're doing, and the truth is, they really didn't want to know, because when I got into that program, I started doing it myself, and they were having no discernible effect. The program existed just for government people to have jobs, because as a result of going through their program, nobody was going to college. There was no movement of the needle.
Right.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And this is an outfit that could have been fixed. This wasn't one that was a really bad idea. It was a great idea. It could have been fixed, but you just had the wrong people doing it, and there was no incentives. There was no reward for doing good and no punishment for doing bad. And that's easy to fix.
Yeah, and so, Elon has made a few posts on X. One, he's like at a table and he's coming up and he says, "So just what do you do?" He
Right.
just that line, "Just what do you do?"
Right.
And another is, "What have you accomplished this week?"
Uh-huh.
You
Right.
know, and it is about accountability. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you, it's like, oh yeah, I can just see they're reading resumes already, and look at who's doing what. I'm sure it's an exciting time, and in this position,
Mhm.
it is to shrink the size of government
Yeah.
and
That is
slash
one of the,
excess regulation. So I'm reading from what Trump said. His statement is, "Together, these two wonderful Americans will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies essential to the Save America movement." That's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
And that's one of the comment real quick. I mean, Nicholas had an interesting comment on this on the chat line about what do I think about the releasing the names. I think it's brilliant, actually. I think the term I was looking for before was shock and awe. I think you have to absolutely. They're reeling right now on the left. I mean,
They are.
it's just like they just lost a major battle, and now they're fighting. They're infighting amongst each other, and we need to take advantage of that. It's like in a football game when the other team, when you just got a big touchdown or a big interception. You want to murder them while they're down. You want to kill them while they're down. That's exactly what we have to do there. This is what they tried to do to us, by the way. So
Well,
now it's a tables turned.
the tables have. I'm just now posting, and it is a full list of the cabinet appointments as of right now. And it is, I mean, Pete Hegseth today, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, Attorney General Matt Gaetz. These are people that have been very critical, very outspoken, and Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem.
He and how about the homeland? How about the border guy?
Tom Homan, I
He's
love
my
him.
guy.
I got to hear him speak at Judicial Watch, and
uh,
he was spitting mad at what is going on. And in his speech, he says, I'm mad as hell, And he says, you know why? Because what's happening is wrong. And we have to turn this around. And I'm just paraphrasing what he said, but
mhm.
I will tell you, the man is on fire
And
to,
clearly, yep, he's used to the leftist arguments. I watched him with a CNN type reporter the other day, and
yeah.
his replies were brilliant. One of the things she brought up was that it would cost over $80 billion. Since when, by the way, do the leftists care what anything costs? It always makes me laugh. The only principles they care about are using the principles when they're in their favor. But we have a leftist here actually worried about the cost. So which of course is probably BS, but she claims it costs $80 billion to send it back. And he's like, yeah, and your next point. And then the next one was, what about splitting up the families? And his answers to that were brilliant. It's like, we're not splitting them up. We send the whole family back. And she had nothing to say, right?
Yeah, there is nothing to say to that, because that's true. No. And it's going to be, in some cases, it's going to be their choice. If you have married somebody who's an illegal immigrant into the country, then you can either go with them or it will be split up. But could be their choice. No, we can deport you all, take the
Mhm.
family unit, and as I was mentioning to Don before we got started, that this weekend there was, protests in New York of the immigrants. We've got rights, and you can't deport us. And oh yes, we can. Pack
Yeah.
your bags.
Actually, you don't have any rights. You're not a citizen. And it's by the generosity and goodness of the Americans' hearts that you've been able to get away with what you've gotten away with so far. I mean, there's lots of countries where you'd be just shot for that. And,
Yes.
and we're not doing anything like that. And I love what you were telling me earlier. They're going to give them an opportunity if you leave of your own recognizance, then you can apply and get in line like everybody else. But if we have to come hunt you down, this is going to be a different story. And I think that's a great policy to put out there. So you have an opportunity to leave on your own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You could self deport and then get in line. But
Mhm.
if they're deporting you, there's going to be a big mark in your record. There
Mhm.
will be. He's going to make sure of that. There's also, then we had Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard,
Mhm.
National Security Advisor, Michael Walls, and let's see, the administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, that is on fire as well. Everybody is on fire that he has chosen. And it is if you're picking all the firebrands, I'd say it's
Mhm.
bombing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's giving people courage. Everywhere you look, you see people finally waking up and responding and not being fearful. Not sure how many of you have followed the whole thing with the women's volleyball out west.
Oh,
I think it's
yeah.
San Jose State who has a man playing volleyball, and more women at these other teams are having the courage to say, "No, we're not playing them." Now the universities aren't supporting them, but those games aren't going on, and the women would rather forfeit than to get their faces bashed in by a grown man. I think that's where it has to come from. It has to come from the bottom up. People that refuse to participate in this madness.
Yes, it is. And it's now coming to a second round because the universities come back to the other universities at a second time and they're going, no, thanks.
Yeah.
No, thanks. And that's what it has to be. And so it's an exciting time. We are living in a time that we've never seen um, in our lives, truthfully.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm going, my mom is 90 and I'm trying to think of what she might have seen like this. And I don't think there's any. I don't think there's ever
Mhm.
been a time, even in her life, that this type of thing, we're talking about shrinking our government, truly shrinking and reining in the federal bureaucracy that is attacking the American citizens. Our government should be trying to help us be more prosperous, help us grow. And, we're a um, free market society. And instead, it's the bureaucracy. Try to make your business work with all these regulations we're putting on you.
Yeah. Well, I think what's happened here, like even as great as Reagan was, all he could do was slow the beast. He didn't stop the beast. He slowed the beast. He was the first one to talk about eliminating the Department of Education, for example. I remember I was a young man then. I thought, huh, that's interesting. I didn't really get it, right? But I think what this took, and he talked about how if you don't defend the freedom, you're going to eventually lose the freedom. You got to be awake the whole time and be vigilant. But this country had never been punched in the face. I mean, not domestically. We've been punched in the face with foreign wars and that kind of stuff, civil war, blah, blah, but we've never been punched in the face by the radical left. And this, what they did was they showed us a glimpse into what living under communism would be like. I mean, I remember driving down the freeway and there's reader board signs telling you to put a mask on. You can't go into a store with having a mask on. Your fellow citizens are scared to death. Like 99% of the people in the store, even though they all know it's stupid, are walking around with a mask. People losing their jobs because they didn't get a shot, uh, fearful of losing your job because you don't get a shot, people getting sick after they got the shot. And I couldn't believe this was happening in this country. States preparing concentration camps like they did in Washington and Oregon I know that's what they were doing. Um,
Yes.
and then what was happening around the world, you could see what was happening in places like Australia, where they're tackling grandma and grandpa because they didn't want to get a shot and rounding them up. And these were also countries that I think it was Australia 10 or 15 years ago. The government offered to take back buy their guns, and the Australians were naive enough to do it. Um,
Yes.
and they wanted to do the same thing here. And to see it play out and to see them actually do what they only talked about doing on U.S. soil, I think that was the wake up call we needed to have. I'm almost thankful. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm thankful they stole the election, which they obviously did. Now we know this because 18 million votes seem to have just disappeared into thin air, and now people are starting to see that for themselves. But I think that's what it took for America to wake up and finally realize how dangerous these people are.
You're absolutely right. And that's how we can be where we're at right now, is because of the waking up, the veil being lifted from our eyes, of because so many of things were conspiracy theorists. Oh, no, there's not one world order. There's no 2020 agenda, 2025 or whatever. There is none of that agenda, to be, well, yes, there is. There has been. And it was actually under Obama was the first time he openly talked about it. So it's been a slow waking up of America. But you realize Trump in his first administration, he's the person who called out the fake media, the
Mhm.
propaganda machine. So there has been so much waking up, and then COVID happening woke people up more. And look at now at, after this election, CNN and MSNBC are tanking. Their viewership is in the gutter. MSNBC's for sale, I believe,
Mhm.
and CNN is laying off hundreds of people. So you cannot have this backlash, or what I'm going to call it backlash, but to have less government if the awakening didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because if the people didn't see this, they would be fighting it more. Now, there are people that are, because there's plenty of people that didn't vote for Trump, and they believe, sadly, they believe the lies of those lamestream medias.
Well, the thing about the truth, the truth is like water on a dam, right? You can you can build a dam and the water is going to go over it, under it, around it, seep into the atmosphere, eventually wear the stone down, but eventually the water is going to get through, and that's how truth is. It eventually comes out. The whole point is to get it is what's the price of getting it out? And if we paid a high price, not as high a price as could have been paid, but
Yeah.
we paid a very high price. We didn't have to go through what they had to go through in Eastern Europe, for example. Um, but wow, what a
And
scary.
I'll say it, if we can turn this nation around without firing a shot, it will be a blessing.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be an amazing thing. We paid the price already in a number of ways. You think about the number of people who've lost their lives because
Mhm.
their business was stolen from them, or the suicide rate amongst young people and how their lives have been damaged because of what the left has done, or people who've been gaslit and not knowing what gender they are, and had irreversible surgeries done on them. I mean, the list goes on in terms of what these people have evil people have done to us, and we've got to put systems in place to prevent them from ever being in power again. There's a whole lot of fixing to be done, and I think one of the best places to start is with the public school system. Um,
Yes, and Trump says we're gonna abolish it and turn it all back to the states. And the left is going, you can't do that, and he's going, just watch,
yeah,
because yes,
yeah, it's the
you
same
can.
concept. Yeah, same concept as Roe v. Wade. Let the states figure it out. The abortion issue is not in the Constitution. That means it belongs to the states. And the same thing with education. There's nothing in the Constitution about education. You figure out how to do it yourself. That's a state issue. So just going back to we are a constitutional republic, which means we obey the Constitution. Imagine that.
Mhm.
Oh, how about his other proposal around term limits? Um,
Oh yes,
Talked about before, but that is another brilliant one.
it is. It is, and I hope that happens. I really, really do. And we're going to have to see, because I don't think Trump got who he would like in the Senate. But,
Mhm.
you deal with what you have, and the cards will still play. The cards will play.
Mhm.
Either they'll get primaried,
Mhm.
or they're going to play cards. Thune has said we're going to implement Trump's agenda. We'll
Mhm.
see. But I'll tell you, the people have said that's what we want. And so it's
Yeah.
people are
Well,
much more
mhm.
engaged to fight back against the elected legislators that are not going in the correct direction, the right direction, for their state or nation. And so there's changes coming, changes in the air.
Well, we all know that that whole issue around the uniparty, there was a certain amount of truth to that,
Oh,
because we all know how foul the Democrat Party had become. But there was a component of the Republican Party, and we all know who they were, who essentially behaved just like Democrats with an R behind their name. And I think one of the things that Trump has done is he's exposed them as well. It's like the creation of a new party. So you didn't see the Romneys, the Bushes, the Cheneys. You didn't see any of those people in support of Trump. Unlike on the Democrat side, you saw the historical figures were there for them.
yeah.
The Obamas and the Clintons. I think it's hilarious that the most important clan in the Democratic Party, the Kennedys. So RFK leaving the Democrat Party. Can you think of anything as monumental as that to tell you what a big shift has occurred? Um,
Yes.
so the Republican Party has literally become the party of the middle class. Um, and the Democrat Party has literally become the party of the economic elites. How did that happen?
Well, there has been a lot of house cleaning. There's going to be needs to be a lot more. And it's not just at the federal level, but in our state level,
Mm,
and the states that are blue states. There are people with an R behind their name that are working for the Unity Party, that are working for the Democrats. And I'll tell you, that's actually what got me involved in politics. But because I realized that I've never wanted to hold office. I want to help turn towards the right,
mhm,
but I got involved with the Republicans, knowing that our party needed to change. It needed to go back to conservatism, not the same direction as the Democrats, just slower, because that's what you could see. I could see that
mhm,
that's what they were doing. They were just slow walking us, and that
mhm,
promising a lot, delivering little, and
mhm,
slow walking us in the same direction. And that did not sit well with me. And so seeing here in Oregon that we have a lot of people that are gaslighting a lot of people that think that these people are actually conservative when they're not. They're frankly Democrat operatives in our party. And this is a good segue, if I might, Don, to a
sure.
letter. There's a candid letter here from the outgoing House Minority Leader. He decries endless drama within his caucus. And this is Jeff Helfrich. He
Mhm,
sent out a brief resignation letter to the public and a more candid letter to his GOP colleagues.
mhm,
And in the letter to this is from the Willamette Week, and in his letter to um, the GOP, his caucus,
mhm,
he said that, let me find exactly where I wanted to read.
mhm,
He said in his candid letter that Willamette Week had got today, that he noted that unlike Senate Republicans who lost a seat to Democrats, House Republicans held their ground, successfully defended 4 seats in which Democrats hold a registration advantage over Republicans. The Republican caucus did really good.
mhm,
He said that when he took the Senate leader seat, Senate Minority Leader, or the House Minority Leader, sorry, seat. He said he knew it would be tough, and there would be meetings and it would require a lot of time. He says, but I was prepared for the long days and nights away from home, but I was not prepared for the endless drama within the caucus.
Mhm.
He says, I went into the job expecting tough fights
Mhm.
and with Democrat leadership. Instead, the toughest fights were with the caucus and the party. That's
Mhm.
wrong. And
That
that is the Democrat operatives that are screwing up our our Republican Party and
Mhm.
our Republican caucus. And there has to be a house cleaning in the state of Oregon to truly flip this state red.
Yeah, yeah, and the only answer to that is primaries with great contestants going at each other. That's
Yeah.
really the only way that you can get it done. And you could argue that's probably the one of the biggest reasons the Democratic Party lost was they stopped doing that. So, so they haven't had an honest, primary in years. I mean, they basically selected Hillary. They basically selected Biden. They basically selected Kamala. So when these people finally faced an honest election, obviously she was not qualified. Forget her positions. This is a person who's completely unqualified for the role, or for any role, as near as I can tell. And this is how we clean up on the Republican side too. You got to have that those bare knuckle fights before you can find out, who's going to be the best person, who has the right views, and who has the stamina to do the job and the willingness to do the job.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of people that just want to climb a ladder and then go, okay, I've got a title. And then there's those that are actually fighting for the fight. I mean, look at uh, many of Trump himself
Mhm.
and RFK Jr.
Mhm.
and Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk. These people, they
Mhm.
don't need to do any of this. They're
No,
trying to save a nation. And that's what it takes to help save our state,
you're not looking
to
at it as a
flip our
career.
state.
Yeah, this is not a career gig.
No,
We got too many
no.
people who are looking at these offices as a career gig. I mean, we can't have people running around being 40 years in office. I mean, it's like insane.
Yeah,
Uh, at some point, I'm not sure what that point is, but there's some point where there's too many terms, and I think we need to figure that out. Um, one of the things that made this country, made it so uniquely great, was what George Washington did, and then King James said, "If he steps down, he will be the greatest man who's ever lived," and that's the esteem with which they held it, because no one does that, but George did that, and we need people like George Washington. Citizen farmer. You know, you go do your job, you go back out. Cincinnatus, of whom the city Cincinnati is named after, he did the same thing. War's over, I'm done, going back to my farm, right? Um,
right.
we need people of that type of integrity. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that is what we need for sure. And so let's see, we have what else was there? I saw somebody, oh, yes, maybe Massey received an appointment. I don't know. I
mhm,
don't know. Let me look on this list I've got here. I don't think so. I don't see one yet. There's lots of rumors still out there,
mhm,
and there might be something more that's come up that's not on this list, but from what I can see right yet,
mhm.
not yet. But it's exciting. It's like, okay, who's Trump going to appoint next?
Right, right. It's almost like a draft, right? Where you're getting all the first round players, right? So one team is snapping up all the first round, all the best talent, and that's what's so cool about this. And one of the things too, I thought I'd mention was some of the impacts this had on the electorate, and how the demographics are shifting in terms of who people vote for. For two results. For one, for what the Democratic Party has done to people, and number two, how Trump has positioned the party to assist those people. So there's a couple of things. So parents of minors. This is an exit poll by NBC News, by the way, right? So
Mhm.
parents of minors were decisive in Trump's victory. There was a shift of 15 points over from 2020. Now you got to ask yourself, why would that be? Well, who's like gaslighting our kids? Who kept our kids from going to school and put them in masks and forced them to have shots? Who's sending my kid home Johnny? He's coming back Jane. We know what party's doing that. Parents don't want that. They want to know what's going on in the classroom. They want to be educated on it. They haven't forgotten that. So that is
Yeah.
a huge shift. What do they see this? Arab and Muslim voters helped Trump to get victory in Michigan. I mean, who would have thought that,
The
right?
Amish in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they didn't even vote before.
No, no, they didn't. And it's something like 180,000, I think. Amish
Mhm,
voted. There's pictures of them when they're buggies and the Trump
mhm.
flags and
Wow,
excuse me, and American flags on them and holding signs.
mhm.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's amazing the shift. I saw Hispanic vote shifted some huge percent. I think it was like at the end of the day, like 46 or 48% of Hispanics voted for Trump. The male vote on the Democrat Party, there was all this hyping of the female vote because of the the quote unquote inability to be in control of their bodies, which is just a short way of saying abortion. But they completely ignored the male vote. So there was a huge shift there. There was a huge shift in young people. The Republican Party has never been the home of the young vote. Huge shift in people under 30 voting, and that becomes a trend because people do nothing but get older, right? So they're
Yeah.
not going to die anytime soon, unless the COVID shot gets them. But older, we're not going to be on the planet 40 years from now. But if you're 20, you're still going to be on the planet. So they've done potentially multi-generational damage to themselves with what they've done over the last few years. And we need to make sure it sticks. That's our job now. Is they fumbled the ball, we recovered the fumble. We need to make sure not turn it over until we get a touchdown.
And the immigrants were a huge demographic of voters as well, because they're pissed off that people are just walking across the border. Those people that have come in and been naturalized in our country,
Hmm.
I know I've got some in my family. They're
Hmm.
pissed off of these people. It's cutting in line, and then
Yep.
getting paid and getting, food vouchers and housing vouchers. The veterans are pissed off. There's so many people pissed off over what has happened via just alone immigration, let alone the economy.
Yeah, because this is the thing. As usual, it's the bottom of the economic scale that gets impacted by these terrible policies
Mhm.
first. So if you're in a lower income area, a lower middle class area, where are these tent camps going to wind up being set up? They're going to wind up set up in your neighborhoods. Which schools are going to get impacted first? The schools that you go to are going to be the ones where there's like 30 different languages spoken, where they're eating the cats and dogs. I love that. I'm sorry. Where those
Yeah.
kinds of things are occurring, they're not. Those things aren't occurring in in Lake Oswego. Rancho Palos Verdes. Bel Air. Those things aren't occurring in those places. Those
No,
things
no,
are
no.
occurring amongst the regular population first. The regular population said, "I've had enough." So that's why one of the reasons you go to New York City, you saw how huge the turnout was for Trump when they had those rallies in New York City. That is supposed to be a Democratic stronghold. And you had people turning out from every race being pro Trump. They did that to them. And there was no denying it. It wasn't Republicans who opened the borders, tore down the wall Trump was trying to build. Uh,
Mhm.
it was them that did that to them. There's no denying it. So the Democratic Party has successfully created a lot of future Republicans, and that is really good. Really good.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, I would like to, there's here in Oregon, it's very easily, like one of the comments early on in our program was, I think Oregonians were going to get punished. We didn't win any statewide race, but by golly, we at least stopped the most important of the measures. So let's look at some wins that we got here in Oregon. I don't have stats on it all by any means, but something and I talked about this last week. There was an article in the and that I found at Oregon Watchdog, and it's even in Oregon a shift to the right when we have 23 of our 36 counties gain to the right. Republican voters are Republican. They shifted right. 23 of our counties. It doesn't matter if it's 1% or it's 9%. You know,
Mhm.
it's a that's the majority of the counties, and it's not all on the east side. In fact,
Mhm.
you have Lake County, Marion County +3 red,
Mhm.
plus 3%.
That's that's Salem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's see, Sherman County, Klamath +2, Hood River, very Democrat,
Mhm.
+2 to the red, 2%. Washington County, 1%. You know what? We'll take it. We'll take the percentages no matter what it is, right? And so just know that there's been a lot of good to have 23 counties going more to the right. Now, I'm going to brag on Umatilla County because we went 6 points to the right, +6. We were the number 2 county in the state. And that thrills me
Mhm.
because I've been working so hard to do that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And in voter registration, and we talk a lot about that, and the need to have we have to have Republican voters to turn this state around, and we need to increase it. Well, in this past year, Umatilla County registered 846 more Republicans this past year to date. Okay, Democrats only got 22.
Mhm. That's
So
awesome.
in Umatilla County, I'm only talking Umatilla County, and the
Mhm.
NAV, which is going to be the motor voter people that are screwed up. They
Mhm.
go because they didn't return the card that
Mhm.
you get from the DMV. You get from the elections after you register with a particular party. So
Mhm.
then you automatically get put as an NAV. So in Umatilla County, it was 407 in 2024 to date. And so that's half of the Republicans. It's
Mhm.
under half. And, this is how we change our state. And now, in a little bit of election, and I can only do Umatilla County. I didn't do numbers for all, but I know like Lynette had posted, or I'm not Lynette. Her name is escaping me. Elaine. She had posted on Wallowa County what the percentages were and whatnot. So
Mhm.
in Umatilla County, so far right now, the Republican voter return is 84.6%. Now,
Mhm.
countywide, it's 62.2, but we have so many that just never vote.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the Republican turnout is 84.6. I'm proud of that. And it's going to be higher when the final numbers come in. So
Mhm.
we have to take the wins where we can get them, but we have to work at it. And that work is registering voters.
Well, I tell you, that was one of the most shocking things to me, I guess, was learning that so many conservatives don't vote. There's so many Christians, to be more to the point, don't
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
And it's like I think if there's any lesson we learned here from all of this was that, you can't keep your republic if you can't keep your freedom. You can't keep practicing whatever your religious beliefs are if you don't get involved in this system. And clearly, that's what the Amish, learned and responded to that, and we need to get people to recognize that. You have to, because if you don't, they will take that away from you. And clearly they were trying to do that. I mean, there was a clear and present attack on Christianity, direct attack on Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little more winning is Eric Adams. He's been, well, one, he's indicted because he's going against the Democrats, but now he's hoping the Trump administration will help with the migrant crisis in New York City. So there's a win. He's going, we got to do something here. And, he cut the money off, their food vouchers off, And then they have a big riot last weekend, demonstration. And now he says, I hope he can help. Yes. Colorado flipped a House seat from blue to red. Colorado's pretty darn Democrat. So they flipped a seat. It's all possible. It takes work, but it is all possible. And a Texas county flipped red in its election for the first time since 1892.
I saw that. In fact, I think I printed an article about that. First time since the Harrison administration, right? I mean, it's just unbelievable. 1892.
Yes. Yeah. And this is right next to the US-Mexico border.
Right.
Almost 100% Latino
Wow.
voted for Trump, and they've reported it's 58% of Starr County. I'm telling you, since 1892. And how would you be a border county and be blue is beyond me.
Well,
But
they
they
had to get punched in
flipped
the
it red.
face. Yeah, but it went down to it again. You could talk to your blue in the face, no pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah.
People have to get punched in the face sometimes before they'll recognize the reality, and that's what happened in places like like those border states
Yeah.
or New York City or Chicago. Any place that was a sanctuary city, they did this to their citizens. They did, and those citizens need to reverse that by getting these people out of office. And the first sign is when someone who wants to keep his office, like this mayor of New York City,
Yeah.
is now reversing himself. It's too bad because it's not from the heart. He's really someone who needs to go. He's only doing that because he wants to stay in his job. We want people in office who are doing this because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so and I amongst our Republican circles in the political scene in Oregon, we go, how much more punishment do Oregonians need before they'll change their vote, and it's clearly not enough, but
Yeah,
it's a little bit, and you're not gonna, it didn't get there overnight. And so that's why it's a little bit. You just have to go, okay, we gained some. 23 counties went more right.
and
And that's a dang big deal.
and here's another way to look at this and look at the victory. Another victory would be, what if we got the Democratic Party to behave more like it used to? What if it behaved more like the JFK Democrat Party? That would be a win. So if you had conservative Democrats, I think that's starting to happen in Oregon. I think the Attorney General, well, I think he's independent in Portland, but you have people who there's some people who just can never bring themselves to be Republican because that's just
Right.
that's just right. But if we cause the party to stop nominating true crazies and start nominating moderates or even conservative Democrats. There used to be such a thing, by the way. We've forgotten that. But there used to be conservative Democrats. They exist. If we could get that to happen, that's a victory. We can work with them.
We can, but I'll tell you, I almost hate to say this, but if the Democrats keep being as radical as they are, all it does is help us.
Yeah, that's true.
It
Yeah, there is.
it
Yeah,
does it just helps us because people are going, no, I'm sick and tired of defund the police.
yeah.
I'm tired of Antifa and BLM, and we're tired of the regulation. There's a big deal happening right now because in January 2025, California and Oregon, I don't know about Washington, but California and Oregon have a mandate that pickup trucks will be sold, like F-250s and 350s are going to be, that would be a Ford, sold zero emissions. And certain motorhomes, zero emissions. Well, today, Toyota made an announcement in California, and they said, it's impossible to meet that
Mhm.
because you don't even have the infrastructure for it. It's
Yeah.
impossible to meet. And in
Mhm.
Oregon, there's groups that are negotiating, hoping our governor will extend that out for a number of years,
Mhm.
because you can mandate all you want. you know what? The price of used cars is going to go up because
Right.
people are just not going to be buying that.
Yeah, and eventually it's going to cost office holders their jobs, which at the end of the day is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
The free market will take care, and it has taken care of that. I was talking to a friend from Indonesia today. It was interesting. She was talking about being in Jakarta and just how polluted it is there. I mean, she was like sick and in the hospital within a couple of days of being back there because of levels of car pollution. Then I was telling her what LA used to be like as recently as 40 years ago.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I remember I lived in Los Angeles, and you could eat the air. I mean, you could go. So for those of you familiar with LA, the San Gabriel Mountains ring the city, and on a clear day, they are beautiful. The snow-capped peaks around
Mhm.
LA are beautiful. But most days you could never see them. But if you've been to LA recently, you can see them clear as a bell, and that's the result of technology that companies have put into place because they've improved. And now, we would, even though the population is probably 30 or 40% more, they've reduced emissions that much. So the market's going to take care of it anyway.
Yeah.
We have to stop letting the left gaslight people into thinking that that won't happen or that it can't happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, hey, we won bigly. I'm not tired of winning at all.
we must never forget. It's almost like we need somebody to give the equivalent of the old Gettysburg Address, right? That Abe Lincoln gave at the end of that victory. You know, those that died have not died in vain, right? we
Yes.
we must never forget what these people did to us. Um, over the I feel like the Berlin Wall just fell. I mean, that's literally what this feels like.
Well, I'll tell you it does. But I know there's a big fight, and the Democrats are just organizing, okay, how are we going to tackle this and how are we going to tackle that? They've already said they've hired a battalion of lawyers and they're going to start, trying to shut stuff down. And but I realize that some of what Trump has spoke about
Mhm.
is already been litigated in the court. So there's the ways he wants to do mass immigration, deportation is already been through the courts. It's an old rule. So he's going to go back in time and it's there's I support what he's doing. And we all of these people that came across the border have all got to go, that have been given, oh, I can just go on an app here,
Mhm.
and okay, now I get a whatever and get to walk across the border and you're going to give me a phone, a card, and a place to live.
Mhm.
This is
Well, the thing
spend
is,
the money. There's no price tag. Spend the money to
yeah.
kick them out and repatriate them to their home nation. And if they won't go there, they can go wherever they want to go. It's just get them out of our country.
Yeah, we know the playbook now. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Trump this time around. First time around, how could he possibly know? Yeah, he knew there was a deep state, but I don't think he knew how deep. I don't think any of us knew.
No,
There were a few
no,
prognosticators out there that spoke to it, but I had no clue it was this evil. Um, no clue.
no.
Um, but now we know. And so you put strategies into place, like the strategies they put into place to get out the vote, the strategies they put out in place to protect the integrity of the election process. I mean, all of those things positioned us so that we could have 18 million votes not reappear. So yeah, it's just like in a football game. You might have ran that trick play the last game. Now we
Yeah.
know that trick play. You're gonna come with something different. And I think we're prepared for you. And now we know you're evil. This is not regular competition of arguing principles. We know now that you are evil, which means
Yes.
deal with that differently. So I'm really optimistic.
So am I. So am I. And so optimism is a good note to end on, Don.
I like that. I like that. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Sonny, and thank you, audience, for joining us as well. Let freedom ring, and I know as Sonny would say, let's continue to win bigly, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Peace.